All right, guys. Welcome to the Paul Cruz Sales Agency for the weekly sales training. I have a very powerful, simple, but effective topic that I'm going to share with you that if you apply, you're going to not only grow your sales, increase your cash flow, but more importantly, you will become a better, more effective, more powerful salesperson. And that leads to increasing your value. Now, before we dig into the topic, if you're watching this video on YouTube or any of my channels, hit the subscription button below, smash the like button, and more importantly, share your comments. Let me know if you agree or disagree, okay? So now, there's 3 steps that I use and that I've been using over many years that allows me to be effective in what I do and to produce sales results. Now, these 3 steps that I'm going to share with you, some of you have probably heard it before, but I think it's important that we always get back to basics. Also, these 3 steps are typically what the movie producers or the movie industry uses to produce movies. This is how a lot of mass advertising and marketing things are done, typically with these 3 steps. And once you understand these 3 steps, I promise you, you're going to enjoy selling more than you are right now. I promise you, you're going to see a big difference in how much better you become and how much better you will be if you apply these 3 steps. Now, these names that I'm going to use, these are the names I gave it, but it's still the same principles. It's still the same thing that every industry uses. Every industry uses. Okay, now the most important thing to any relationship or any potential new relationship, or to get anyone to watch a movie, to go to the theater, to follow up on an email, to call you back on a phone message, to a video conference call. The number one thing that you must do in the opening, I call it the opening of a call, is you have to set the tone with the prospect or with your audience. The opening, you have to give it a hook. That's what the movie business does. They do a little short trailer, and now with social media, you have these 15 to 30-second clips that people use to hook people to go to their channel to watch the full version of it, right? Whether you're posting on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, it doesn't matter. Typically, what you want to do is you want to set the tone by a hook, or what they call engagement, right? So, what is the opening of the call or the initial contact? What is it you're supposed to establish? Number one thing you must do is you got to have excitement. You got to be excited about what you do. When the movie business does the trailer and they do a hook, they do something that's exciting, that's daring, that makes you go, ooh, or ah, or gets you scared, right? Selling is no different on the phone, or whether you're doing a video, or whether you're putting a content, right? You got to set the tone with the hook. And as for me, being on the phone, I have 3 to 5 seconds to get people's attention so that they can continue to watch my movie or listen to my movie, right? Because it's live, there's no rehearse, there's no editing, it's right there on the spot. So when you open up the phone call or the initial contact or you set the tone, you have to understand that there's a perceived value right off the bat. They're either going to perceive something good, exciting, and wanting to continue, or they're just going to turn it off and go somewhere else, right? That's what the hook is. That's what the engagement is. So for me, I have 3 to 5 seconds to get them hooked, to get them excited, so that they can continue to watch it or listen to my movie, right? So at the end of the day, you set the tone for the conversation. You set the tone for the relationship. The movie business sets the tone for how you're going to view this movie, how you're going to give your 2.5 hours to 3 hours of your valuable time to the movie, right? So you got to perceive value. You set the tone for the relationship. And you have to earn trust right away. You have to earn respect right away. And you have to show some value. For me, I got to do all those three things within 3 to 5 seconds. Think about it. So the opening of any potential relationship, however it may start, these principles do not change. Does that make sense? So the opening, I call it the opening of the call, is the most important because it sets the tone for everything else that comes after that. Very important. Now, before we go into part 2, if you're watching this on my channel or anywhere you're watching this video, share your comments, share your thoughts. Let me know if you agree or disagree. I would love to hear your feedback. Okay, now, once you understand the importance of the opening call, now you're going to transition to what I call the body of the call or the storytelling of the call. In the movie business, that's where they're either going to keep their audience or they're going to lose their audience, right? Because if they got you excited on the opening and you're engaged and then the story becomes very dull and boring, there's no excitement, there's nothing to it, and it's confused, chances are you're going to walk out of the theater. You're not going to refer this movie. And if they got a sequel, chances are you're not going to watch it, right? Because you were disappointed because of the initial value you saw and the trust you gave and the respect you gave in the opening of the movie or the opening of the call. So the body, for me, is the most valuable part. Not the most important, the most valuable. This is where you earn your key. This is where you know if you're going to close a deal or not. This is where you're going to know if you convert a prospect into a customer. Why? Because now, hopefully, from the opening of the call to the transition of the body of the call, you have increased your value in the relationship. They're now engaged with you. Their emotions are wild up. They're excited. But that emotion and that engagement, that excitement must be fulfilled. Now, the body of the call, which is a storytelling, there's a lot of elements to it. This is where you have to be effective in asking the right questions at the right time. And it's not what you ask, it's how you ask it in the conversation. This is where you have to learn to transition and adjust to your audience because now they're engaged, now they're part of the story. You have to know how to do discovery about the prospect. You got to make sure that they qualify to afford what you're about to offer them. You have to know how to handle their objections with very powerful rebuttals. You have to understand a buying signal from an objection or legitimate question, right? That's the skill. You have to know how to push sometimes when they're resisting to go with you through the path or through a certain path. This is when 90%, in my opinion, the deals are either solidified or lost. Because here's the thing is, everyone wants to feel special. Everyone wants to be engaged. Everyone wants to see a good movie or listen to a good story like music or a podcast because that's how we communicate. And more importantly, We all, as human beings, as people, we buy one of two ways. We either want something or we need something. 90% of the way we buy, or 95% is emotion, is we want to do it. So in the storytelling aspect, you have to know how to tell a very powerful, effective, engaging story. Those who can tell better stories are usually more successful. That's just the fact. So that's why I teach my clients and I teach my salespeople, you better become a very powerful storyteller. You better know how to take word, make them pop, get people emotional, get them excited, have them see the big picture and the visionary aspect of it, because that's where you're going to earn your pay. And so what you're supposed to accomplish in the story part, or the body of the story, or the body of the core of the conversation, however you do your contacts, however you communicate with people, you got to increase your value at that point. You got to get the prospect to want what they need and what you're offering. You got to get them to buy into the relationship because you set the tone for it. You have to be able to fulfill that emotion that they're feeling, that they're part of the movie. They're part of the story because they are the story. You have to make sure you accomplish where you're selling you. You're selling your value, but you don't make it about you. You make it about the prospect. That's the skill. That's the body of the phone call. That's the body of any storytelling. That's the body of any content you put out there, whether it's a regular posting, written content, or visual, or an audio. Just think about this. If you're listening to it, let's say a 3-hour podcast, right? And you're listening, you listen to it for 3 hours. They got you engaged. They hooked you from the opening of the commercial or whatever it may, or the intro, right? But then they had to fulfill you by keeping that story engaging with you, right? Because you feel part of it. And then hopefully when they end the call, right, you're feeling good about it, that you want to come back the next day. It's no different with phone sales. That's what I do every single day. Does that make sense? So step 2 is the body of the call, what I call the storytelling of the call. Telling of the call. Again, if you're watching this video on YouTube or any of my channels or any of my social media platform, if you like it, give me a like, smash the like button. Do me a favor, share your comments. Let me know if you agree or disagree. I would love to hear your feedback. And also, if you're watching me on YouTube, hit the subscription button below. Now, let's transition to number 3. Number 3 is what I call the closing of the call. For me, typically, the closing happens in the opening of it, because once you set the tone and you can tell powerful stories, you really are closing from the beginning, right? The problem with people closing deals is this: they may tell good story. There's a difference between being a salesperson and a closer. A salesperson could get people engaged, they tell good story, they make you feel good, they make you feel like they're your friend, but they don't know how to push to get the order. They're afraid of adversity, they're afraid of pushing, they're afraid of resistance. A closer closes the deal. When you get to the C, or the third part of the call, the close or the conversion, you have to understand this is where the real value is. So you went from a perceived value in the opening to intrinsic value in the body. Now the real value is this: when they actually sign on with you, they bought into the relationship. You're now starting a win-win situation, where they're taking ownership of what you're offering, where they know that you are the person for them that's going to solve their sales problem. They bought into the whole process because the process was about them and not about you. But even though it was about the relationship, does that make sense? Because what's everyone's favorite topic? WIIFM, what's in it for me, right? So the prospect has to know, feel, and understand your conviction. They have to feel and know and believe that you are the solution to their problems. And more importantly, in the closing, you fulfill that engagement in the storyteller. You fulfill that emotion in the storyteller. You fulfill their climax. They love the end of the movie and they can't wait for the sequel. That's how you have to do things. That's how simple it really is. And the closing, when you do it right, a high percent of the time, you don't have to negotiate your price down. Why? Because if you did part two right, or the storytelling, and you increased your value, people are willing to pay for value. Are you? If you did the right discovery in the storytelling, and you did a financial qualification with them, and you know that they can afford your price, then you won't have to negotiate your price. Does that make sense? So there's a saying in business, always be closing. I think people that use that is just a way to pump themselves up, but that's just weak because a closer just closes. And a professional salesperson knows when to transition from the salesperson to the closer. But a real top salesperson is always closing, whether they're telling a story or not. And closing is the art of asking questions and getting them tied down to those questions throughout the whole selling process. That's what closing really is. Asking questions, getting answer, and getting commitment. Asking questions, getting an answer, and getting commitment. If you don't ask questions, you don't get answers, you can't solve problems because you don't know what they're really thinking, right? Does that make sense? So anyway, guys, this is what the 3 steps to producing more sales, increasing your cash flow, increasing your value, becoming a better, more effective salesperson. It's not easy to learn, but it's a great thing to learn. So if you want to know more about, the art of storytelling, how to master these 3 steps, visit my website at www.paulcruzsalesagency.com. Fill out the simple form and I will personally reach out to you.